Good morning, everyone. We are here in our podcast, and our guest today, for it's actually our first guest because up to now we've done podcasts on the Aladdin talking about a project, and we're super lucky to have our master planner, Itai, from Symbiosis in Costa Rica, join us. We met Itai in Costa Rica when we were visiting the country and visiting different projects and exploring in order to learn what kind of projects and villages and communities exist in the world because we had never been to Costa Rica. And we were lucky to have Itai invite us to his place, to his home, where he is right now, where we had been in touch before, but when we got there, we very quickly realized that Itai would be an amazing fit. Itai and his team would be an amazing fit to join us and help us plan what can be done on our land. Itai has an amazing house, an amazing homestead. I think we were really impressed by what he has built, and we realized like this is one of the most beautiful. For me personally, it was one of the most beautiful houses I'd ever seen. And I was thinking that this is the kind of life we want to offer, or at least some parts of it, to the people who are going to live in our village. And so we are lucky that Itai and his team were excited to partner with us and work with us to plan this big project that we're building. And so we wanted to have Itai on the podcast because obviously we've recorded Itai on the land and discussed what we're doing, and we're sharing a lot of content with Itai, sharing amazing insights about permaculture, about master planning processes, but wanted to go deeper. So and discuss our latest workshop, and where we spent about 2 weeks ago, we spent a week together for the second time, going deeper into the master planning process. And so I wanted to kind of go deeper and talk about the different dilemmas and different challenges that we face during the week, because I think it's interesting to see how complex and how complicated it is to make these decisions between different options that we have and the different challenges that we have, whether it's technical, financial, and also in terms of preserving nature, but also making life awesome for people who live in there. So, so I want to welcome Itai. Welcome, Itai.
Hi, thank you.
So maybe Itai, you can tell us a little bit about what you experienced when you came to the land first, to our project first, and what you thought was exciting and what could be potential challenge. What was your first reaction when you saw the land?
So, first of all, the land is challenging because it has a lot of topography. And for the goal that you had of about 100 homes, uh, if we would have gone with a conventional development model as experienced in most of the world, is kind of like a subdivision of housing development, it would have been challenging. And I think the part that I appreciated very much, and I think was not just uh, an opportunity, but also a, a door opening to a totally different scheme of development, is first of all the fact that you guys were open to a different model of development, because the topography would have been very challenging to go through with a conventional kind of like subdivision. And also, we in Symbiosis, and me personally, we don't really believe that this is a good design approach or design philosophy, because creating these subdivisions is not a good layout for fostering healthy community.
Can you explain what subdivisions mean? I don't think that everybody understands what you can like paint a picture.
So usually these days, housing developments take a unit of land, and lay out a road in the most convenient location, sometimes not necessarily topographically comfortable, but comfortable from the perspective of the subdivision development. So it makes it easier for the developer to create lots that are more or less the same size, or maybe sometimes they define, okay, we need small, medium, and large lots or something like that. But then usually what happens is that there is a road with cul-de-sacs, the ends, then it has subdivision of lots along the road, which maximizes the use of the land for private homes, and it distributes the homes as evenly over the land as possible. It gives, it's kind of the classic suburban American model of a little lawn or garden, front yard, backyard kind of like situation for each house. No one really gets vast parcel of land for really farming, but everyone gets a little bit of land to do a little bit of something, whether it's to have a front lawn, or a backyard, or a little bit of a tree or a hedge. Um, it has many problems. From developers' perspective, it's kind of the norm, or the way that maybe engineers would push to, because it's potentially easier to engineer. From a developer's point of view, it's kind of costly because you spread your infrastructure like electricity and water systems, and if you have a centralized sewage system, then it all has to be spread out evenly throughout the whole land. So it has a high price tag potentially. And from eco-social point of view, what does it create? What is the kind of community that it creates? You need a car to get anywhere because it's not mixed use, so there are no stores. It's only residential. So you create kind of like a sleeping town where people come to in the evening to make dinner, and they pick up kids from school, come in the afternoon, do house chores and make dinner and go to sleep and wake up in the morning and rush to take the kids to prepare and take the kids to school and leave the house. If both parents are working, then the place becomes completely empty. If only one of the parents are working, then the other stays behind, kind of like in potentially a social desert. So it creates a lot of issues, social and practical. It creates usually a lot of traffic leaving these sleeping towns in the morning, and traffic. Everyone is living in approximately the same time, coming back approximately at the same time. So it's kind of for me, it's a style of living. We've been living in a place like that before, and I don't really appreciate very much the style of living. Uh, for me, a much healthier model of living is living in a mixed use town where you have a first story, you have small businesses that all your basic needs are very close by. And then you have apartments on the second, third, and so on stories, not too high, because we agree with Christopher Alexander that people tend to get a little crazy after fourth story and up. For different reasons than the spread out suburban style, but uh, creates another type of problem. But we like the mixed use where you can basically go down from your apartment in the morning and go get fresh bread from the bakery, and it's a minute away, and you can get fresh groceries and it's 2 minutes away, and you can come back to make your breakfast, and it's all fresh and nice from that same day. And I think it's a model that uh, you can see much more in Europe, for example, where people don't usually buy these like huge supermarket. Um, um, what do you call it?
Cards.
Carts.
The carts. They fill up supermarket carts full of food for a month, and then it sits in freezers and refrigerators. The culture is more, let's go get a little bit of something fresh for the day. And it reflects in many aspects. For example, refrigerators in European homes are usually, on average, much smaller than American refrigerators and freezers, which are huge. Because it's a cultural difference that is allowing or accepting or embracing the concept of living in a mixed use town that allows for going down and buying fresh every day, not buying for a whole month.
Cool. Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
I mean,
I completely
I love it.
went on a tangent and
No, I mean it's all connected. It's all connected. No, you asked what subdivisions are. And
yeah, this is good. No,
it's
I think it's good to explain. So what are subdivisions? Subdivisions, if I understand correctly, is basically you take your map and you basically try to your optimization function, what you're maximizing for, is having the highest number of sellable square meters, right? That's I think a key ingredient in the subdivision mindset is I don't want to waste square meters on untouched. I'd rather sell it to someone and have them maintain it and grow trees there, etc. Right? So it's how can I maximize the percentage of the land that is owned by a client and maintained by a client? I think that's one aspect of how you get to the subdivision mindset. I think another one that I want to call out that's really important, at least it's kind of a learning that I've learned as we're going on this journey, and we're doing something different that I think is more challenging, and I want to talk about this point. When you do subdivisions, you said that infrastructure costs go up because you're more spread out. Yes. At the same time, you basically have no building cost. You are selling land to people, and they then need to figure out how to architect their home and how to build it and budget for the build. When we're thinking of building mixed use, it's more on us to build complexes. There's a lot of financial overhead that we need to deal with to create that experience. And so I want to bring up this point and see where I might be wrong or where you disagree. I think that developers lean towards the subdivision because then the whole kind of overhead of expenses, the costs go down significantly, actually. So maybe infrastructure is a little bit higher, but there's so much capital they don't need to raise in order to materialize buildings. That's on the clients. They roll it down.
That's true. That is true. And well, it depends. There are different projects with different business models. Some developments actually do build their houses and sell them to the client. But in general, yes, there is the possibility for a developer to not need to raise the money and not need to invest in the development of the houses and roll the ball down the lane to the client to buy. Having that said, I think especially in the context of Playa Venao, Panama, there is something to be said about the experience of someone that is coming, that is not a Panamanian or not they're not real. There is no one really from Playa Venao yet.
Correct.
Everybody is moving to Playa Venao.
My kids might be from Venao at some point.
Yeah. There you go. But I don't think you'll have anyone buying that is from Playa Venao and that knows how how things roll there. Maybe someone from Panama City might have the the financial ability, or from Chitre. I don't know. But even then, they've never built anything in Playa Venao. And especially for foreigners moving from Europe or the US or Canada or Australia or wherever to Panama to build and buy, to live in Playa Venao, it's an extraordinary ordeal to navigate the waters of how to have a house designed and built. And I'm saying that based on a lot of experience here in Costa Rica with similar projects where people with a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of excitement bought lots in condominiums or eco neighborhoods or whatever, and had to go through the ordeal of hiring an architect and engineers and then builders and go through the permitting process. And it's very abrasive process that, yeah, seriously, it's a very abrasive process that ends up many times in divorce or in huge frustration or in not being able to finish the house because people don't necessarily know how to navigate these waters. And even I'm saying even people who have experience with construction in other countries, but when they arrive to a new country, they don't necessarily know the language. They definitely don't understand the culture or the legislation, and it's very, very, very challenging. And for most people, buying land and building a house is the biggest expense they have in their lifetime. So it's very strenuous and applies a lot of stress on people, and it can become from a very exciting experience into a very challenging and hard experience. So I think there is a lot to be said about the benefit of people not having to deal with that and being able to buy an apartment or a house that is built by professionals, by people who understand how to do things, and they have an easy transition. They know what they get. It's clear from the beginning. They can walk through it and see what they're getting and move right in. There is a huge benefit to that, and I think if you're going to charge premium for these apartments, I think it definitely worth what it costs.
Can you describe the fundamental differences between basically subdivision is taking a cake and slicing it, right? We're basically taking the land, slicing it, and optimizing for sellable real estate, sellable square meters. Can you compare that to permaculture design?
Well, I think the main difference is that the permaculture design is based on reading the landscape and understanding the landscape. And in a conventional housing development or land division, it's not necessarily a part of the scheme. It's not necessarily by design, but usually, from my experience, what we see is a general disregard to the topography. Many times, either the developer would look for land that is very flat or nearly flat or has very little topography because it makes it much easier. And in situations where the developer is using a land that has diverse topography, many times there would be very little regard to that topography. Many times I've seen lots that are being subdivided and put to sell, which have no access or no sellable, no buildable area. So they can be steep or they can be forested or they can be inaccessible. And the developer just hopes that someone is going to buy it and will have to figure out by themselves how to deal with that. And it can increase building costs tremendously, can have a high risk construction sites with potential landslides or slope instability. I'm not saying that every development is necessarily having these issues, but I have seen more than one development that is on steep terrain or on diverse topography that is not afraid to subdivide lots that are basically unbuildable or unapproachable and sell them.
So the permaculture approach is to listen to the land and try to see what should work there.
Well, permaculture approach is, first of all, is reading the landscape, understanding what is the landscape, what is the topography, where are the views, where are the wind direction. Same goes for versus conventional development. Nobody cares where. Maybe there is a lot of care a lot of times for the view because that raises the value of a plot, but direction of breeze is not something that is taken into consideration. In subdivisions, lots that have no airflow in the tropics, which is very inconvenient to live in a lot like that. So we're looking at all these factors. We're looking not just at flow, but we're looking at the soil type, at vegetation. We're looking at orientation to the sun. We're looking at airflow. Are there comfortable winds, like a nice breeze, or are there harsh winds at some times of the year that are uncomfortable. We take all that into consideration, and our approach to design is based on what the land is allowing first, and what is desirable second from an eco-social perspective. Because we're not just designing for dollars, we're designing also because we want to create something that is beautiful, that enhances and protects nature, that is creating a lively and strong and healthy community, which is maybe a topic that we should touch next about what does it even mean community. And I think what we came up with is doing exactly all of that. I think the concept of reducing the footprint of the development and concentrating both amenities and mixed use living area into smaller clusters is doing exactly that, where it allows us to protect more nature, reforest a lot more of the farm, leave it untouched or actually enhanced with reforestation. And although the area that we're going to develop is going to have high impact, it's relatively a very small part of the land. So maybe traded having medium impact on all of the land into high impact on very little portion of the land, which from my perspective, it's a net benefit.
I'm wondering if you came into the project thinking, okay, like if you add this when you're looking at the topographic map, were you already thinking, oh, we should probably have a high impact, low footprint approach, and we should do mixed use, all that, or did that come as you came into the land and just like it just?
No, I'm very good reading topo maps. This is what I do for a living, basically. So when you sent me the topo map and I sat with Sergio and we looked at it, I was immediately, oh, no, there is a lot of topography here. There is a lot of slope. I'm a little concerned about how to approach it because of the amount of homes that were the goal. And when I looked at it, I told Sergio, I remember clearly, I told him, listen, I don't know where exactly, but I think the solution here is high impact on small portion, where we might do a lot of earthworks and really shape that area to our needs, but reduce the impact on most of the land. And when we came to the land and walked it, I was looking for that spot. So I did have it in mind. Although I was not sold on it. I wouldn't say that I was committed that this is the only way to go, but I definitely had in the back of my mind some concern how we're going to make it fit. Probably the best solution is to create a high density mixed use area.
Okay, amazing. So you came with that thought that you want to have that kind of setup, and then can you describe where the location that you found and like what was what we want to do there?
So the location that we identified, there are so many factors. So first of all, we want to create a gradient of privacy for the whole project, which is one of Christopher Alexander's pattern. And we want to create rings of density, which is another pattern by Christopher Alexander. And what does it mean? It means that there needs to be an area that is an intermediate area between private homes and apartments and public area. So a mixed use high density area makes sense for that purpose because it allows people from the outside to come and interact, which makes the town center more lively and active, which brings more action. And for the people who likes to live in that high action area, it's a great fit. But then we want to also create some apartments that are farther away from that high action area, which has a little more privacy and a little more quiet, but they're still social and allow people to interact with other people on a daily basis. And then we want to have an even more private ring, which has lower density and more private villas or homes, which are farther apart and allow for people or families that want to have much more privacy. That is also fine because we want to allow for a diversity of people to come and find their place. And I think it's valid that you have diversity. That's another issue with conventional housing developments, that many times they kill the diversity. If they go for a model of uniform lot size, then it's going to end up with a very homogeneous people attracted to it, because they're the people who are attracted to live in that lifestyle and in that modus vivendi. So it just makes sense. So we want to create different modus vivendi, and we want to attract different people, and we want to have options for people to select and choose how they want to live. So our phase one is going to focus on that higher density mixed use area that is attractive for people who want to live in the heart of the downtown. They want to live near the bustle, and I think it's great. I think there are millions and millions of people in the world that anyway live like that in cities, and I think they have the benefit of a mixed use city center and the bustle and the action and the happening, but they don't have the advantage of being surrounded by nature. Usually, in the best of cases, they're surrounded. They're in high proximity to an urban park, right? Like Central Park in New York, or Sintra Park in Lisbon, right? Which is the highest real estate. Usually, is the apartments that have that proximity to the park. So here we have all of the apartments in not just in proximity, but they're right on the edge of a huge park. It's going to be the farm around it. So I think there is something very interesting there, because I think a lot of people are sick and tired of living in cities. Cities are very polluted. Crime rates in big cities usually very high. There are many disadvantages in living in big city that are, I think, more and more overcoming the advantages of living in a big city. And especially if we can create a place that has the advantages, all the advantages of a big city, or I don't know, the main ones. I mean, some things we're not going to be able to bring in from a big city, but uh, have enough action and enough art and enough, bohemian interaction and intellectual stimulation and fun that happens in the city, but in a location where it's really immersed in nature. I think it's going to be very attractive for a lot of people.
Amazing. So when you can you describe what we're doing in terms of the ridges and how we're doing the landfill?
Yes, I think landfill is not the right term. Landfill is when you fill a hole in the ground with garbage, usually.
Oh yeah, it's not garbage.
So yeah, it's called fill.
Fill.
Yeah, fill, cut and fill. We identify these two narrow ridges that are wrapping around this narrow valley. The valley floor drops pretty mildly, although the slopes from the ridges to the valley are pretty steep. The interesting thing is that this valley is a primary valley, so it doesn't have any running water. It only has the runoff that is collected within that same very little tributary area. There is no runoff coming from farther up. It's extremely defined and extremely small footprint for the water management. So that for me was the first aha. It was like, okay, there is something interesting here that we can work with. The second thing is that the ridges are dropping at a very similar slope along the ridge line. So they're kind of like two fingers like that, or legs. So when you stand on any point on the ridge, you're at the same elevation as the other ridge across the valley. So there is also something very interesting there. And since we realized early in the process that we will have to do cuts for roads, for plantels, which are construction sites, throughout the project, we are going to have a lot of dirt. And in projects where you have to remove the dirt from the project, it significantly raises the cost. And when we learned that the native soil 50 centimeters below the ground is what is called in Panama terra tosca, which is this highly compactable, hard pit gravel, basically, that can be compacted to a point where you can uh, pile 80 to 120 tons per square meter, which is a very large amount of weight. So it can carry a lot of weight when compacted. It became clear that we have an interesting potential. Um, we could use the dirt that we need to cut in the same project to fill that valley, that very little narrow valley that has a very little runoff to deal with, so we can handle it. And we can create these terraces, these large terraces that allow us to use this valley in a productive way. So we could have parks and amenities and maybe even homes on these terraces and increase the buildable area. So yes, it is an I would say maybe aggressive intervention for that area. There's going to be a lot of cut and fill, but the area is a very small portion of the overall land, and we are going to deal. And I think in the videos that you released, uh, comes this debate of conservation versus development, and that design decision definitely faces us with a design decision whether we're willing to sacrifice some trees in order to create that scheme, but it allows us to open up 85% of the farm in green space for reforestation and conservation. So for me, um, the net benefit is positive. I believe it's better to have high impact on low area than to have medium to high impact on a lot of area. Because opening roads to everywhere in the farm, but just by itself, without even talking about building homes and so on, is already going to impact a lot more trees and what we're doing there. Most of the area that we're going to work with is bare, has no trees. It's just this very very poor pasture. There are a few trees in the valley, and there is the old Cenicero that is highly damaged inside. It's probably in its last few years of life, and these are the trees that we're dealing with. And all in all, I feel that it's still a net benefit decision to go that design route rather than spread out this amount of homes all over the land.
So I think it's a brilliant idea because it gives us the opportunity to inject life into this area, because it's mixed use and it's high density, and yet it's very small impact in terms of it's high impact but low footprint.
Yes.
And that lets us basically, like you said, subsidize the fact that we're not touching the 80% of the land. So
Yes.
and also just in terms of culture and like a community, having people interacting in a downtown area and basically having a real village energy and vibes will increase the value that it will give to everyone, including the people in the more private areas. So it just increases value for everyone. So now we really fell in love with this idea and workshop number one, and we were, I think, very very excited about it. And then during workshop 2, we had a crisis where doubts were starting to creep regarding the feasibility of this in terms of engineering and as well as financials. So, and that really put that was kind of like, I think, the major crisis of the workshop. Can you describe what happened and how we solved
Yes, absolutely. Well, on the first day, we went to observe the site and contemplate our conceptual design and compare it to what what is there. And I became very concerned because I got two red flags in the back of my mind. The first red flag is that I realized that we are pushing forward a design agenda that is based on several assumptions. And the first assumption is that we can actually, uh, technically, from an engineering standpoint, fill this valley in a safe way with a tierra tosca and not have it creating landslides. Because from everything I ever done in my life, what I teach in the permaculture courses, what I've studied from my own teachers and from experts and from experience, you don't you don't do that. You don't fill a valley, even if it's a primary valley, and you don't build on fill material. And based the design on the assumption that it's plausible from an engineering standpoint, based on what our architect slash engineer in Panama told us. Felix in the first workshop told us, yeah, no problem. This material highly compactable. There's no problem. What you're trying to do there, no problem to pull it off. We're doing it all the time. You can build on it, no problem. But suddenly came to think, yeah, Felix is great and I trust him, but it's almost a hearsay. It's almost a rumor or an opinion. I haven't seen any hard proof that shows me that it is plausible. And I just felt I'm working against my instinct of making sure that everything that we're promoting through this design process is plausible and possible. So that was the first red flag. And the second red flag was the red flag came up when we were talking about retention walls. Because you guys were, and Adi were very concerned about retention walls and the cost of retention walls. Now, for me, it was clear we're talking about high investment project. This project requires a lot of money to invest to make it happen. And from my experience, the retention walls on in a project like that is not a huge budget item comparing to the overall cost of things. And Elad said in the workshop, yeah, we're concerned about death by paper cut. And I like this term because it's very figurative. And I understand that fear of, okay, expenses grow and accumulate. And it's not just the retention wall, it's retention walls and earthworks and electricity and water. But for me, that was I understand that absolutely, but I don't think there is a way around it. For what we're trying to do, retention walls are necessary, and they're not the biggest budget item that we're going to face there. So it raised a big red flag to me, saying, "Hey, are we all on the same page, understanding what does it mean to do this project from a cost perspective, and understanding that the retention walls are a necessary aspect of what we're trying to do here, and they're not the biggest cost item even, because of course, as a designer, I have a responsibility to design something that is plausible budget-wise, not just from an engineering perspective, not just from a eco-social perspective, not from just from ecological perspective. But if I design some fantasy design that is impossible to build from a budget standpoint, uh, my work is uh, is worthless. I did nothing. So it's very important to me to understand what is the budget framework and make sure that we are all in agreement that we're creating enough value by this design that is going to make it worthwhile doing the earthworks and the retention walls that are necessary. Because if I'm wrong and we're not creating enough value by following this design, then we need to rethink everything. So these were the two assumptions that we're working from, and I didn't feel that they were necessarily through through assumptions. And so I immediately, when it came up to me in the first day, I slept over it, or better say, lost sleep over it. And the first thing on the second day, I brought it up, because it's a no go if we can't confirm that we're working on through assumptions, or through information, not assumptions anymore, right? So first we had a call with Felix, and we reviewed the design, and we asked, okay, can you show us places nearby that were using the same soil that we have, and that had fill material of up to 10 meters at the deepest point. That is what is required for us. And can you show us lab tests that show the compression rate and the carrying capacity for this fill? And Felix was very confident, and he immediately said, yes, you can go and see it in this place, that place, and that place. I can send you lab tests from this location that has deep fill, not maybe the 10-meter fill, but 5 or 6 meters fill. And I guarantee that it's not a problem. So we have to rely on the local knowledge. And if Felix, that is the responsible engineer, feels very confident and very certain that this is plausible, and he can show us hard evidence that has been done before, it soothes my doubts. And that was very important. And for the second flag, we went into this intensive week budgeting iteration, where we said, okay, let's quickly calculate the volume of the fill, understand how much it costs here to do this earth movement in compaction, and understand what is the cost per square meter of a retention wall based on real knowledge at the location, and extrapolate how many square meters, including the footings and anchors and everything, do we need, and come to a number. And the result of this number was $200,000 for earthworks and $500,000 for the retention walls, which is $700,000 for the whole earthworks plus retention walls. Again, in this grand scheme of things, for the development of this project and this design, it's not, I mean, it's significant amount of money, but it's not a huge cost. Spending that money, we're creating so much more usable area and so much more value that it makes it worthwhile. And I think, as much as I was assured that we're on a good lane, I think you guys were also feeling a relief that we went through this questioning process and finding out that we're not working off of false assumptions.
I wanted what's kind of top of mind for me is just if you can really briefly explain what retention walls are.
Oh, retention walls are engineered solutions to hold earthworks, whether it's the cut or the fill, from sliding down. It holds them in place. So it could take many different materials or forms. Gabions is one solution, which is made of a stainless wire mesh that is filled up with rocks, and it creates a pretty nice looking facade of a retention wall. It's relatively low cost. Another option is reinforced cement with rebar structure inside and built with concrete. Another option is large rock terrace that are just placed there and are holding the hillside by sheer volume and weight. There are other options, but these are the common and main options that we're facing, and we evaluated the relative cost of each one of these, and we could go with either one of these.
Cool. Thank you.
How did you guys feel after re-examining these 2 points?
Me personally, even though it was very disappointing for a few hours that we might actually have to change the entire plan after we lived with it for 6 weeks and fell in love with it. I was actually very happy in retrospect that we went through this because it just puts more confidence in the plan. So I'm happy we challenged the assumptions. Thank you for that. And now and yeah, it's also important in terms of everything, you know. Like if it's the wrong plan, I want to know about it as soon as possible. So I'm happy that we're now on solid grounds.
Yep.
Yeah, it's also really great to know roughly how much it costs.
Yeah, which is basically what we're doing here. We have a general model that has lots of assumptions, and every workshop or every day in the workshop even is helping us basically refine the costs, and that helps us understand the economics of the project further. So yeah, I'm wondering also what's the next area that I wanna explore. What do you think, Itai, are what other big dilemma was you were losing sleep on, if any?
Before you answer, I just want to also I don't like the word dilemma per se. I think maybe challenge, or maybe something that you're still pondering, maybe something that feels juicy that you need to apply creativity to, where it's not obvious what to do, concerns, like anything that has energy, anything that you have energy towards that's not like boring.
We have this video about the baby dragon, and it's not given the payoff, which is disappointing. So it would be really amazing if you explain what the baby dragon is and how it relates to our project. So what is our baby dragon and how we solved it? You can repeat yourself as well, and we can use that.
A baby dragon in design is basically the analogy is like, imagine that you found a baby dragon and it's really cute and it's really unique. No one have ever seen anything like it. A real baby dragon, and you're saying, "Oh, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to grow it. I'm going to feed it, and one day I'm going to ride it to the sunset, flying through the sky." And all your friends are telling you, "No, you're crazy. This thing is dangerous. It's going to eat you up." And you're like, "No, no, no, no. You'll see. You'll see. I'm going to make it happen." The analogy in design is committing to a design pipeline where we are making some assumptions, uh, maybe false assumptions, and we're committing to a design pipeline that the farther we go on that limb, farther we go down that lane, we are committing ourselves ever more so into something that is very problematic. It could be from budgeting standpoint, it could be from engineering standpoint, it could be from social standpoint, from legal standpoint, it could be from many other perspectives. But the bottom line is it's something that is unfeasible. And the longer it takes us to realize that we're cultivating this baby dragon and not examining the base assumptions and making sure that they're true or false, we push a design agenda that eventually is going to collapse. Collapse metaphorically, not necessarily physically. It could be not an engineering issue, but a market issue, right? Or a budget issue. But we want to make sure that we're not cultivating a baby dragon. And I think this is exactly what we did in the workshop, is to re-examine these two base assumptions and make sure that we're not cultivating something going down the design lane that after I don't know, a year of working on that and developing it and creating it on 3D models and everything, we come to the permitting process, for example, and they say, no, no way in the world. Or we come to an engineer and he's saying, you're nuts. This is totally unsafe. Or we actually put it into motion and start creating it, and there is a disastrous result. I mean, we definitely don't want any of that. So I think that was the first wake up that we had, saying, hey, are we cultivating a baby dragon? And I think was highly important. It's very important to make sure that we don't make false assumptions and to re-examine these 2 points. And I don't think it's going to be the last time that we do that. I can definitely see that there are going to be more points in the future where and it's not necessarily going to be me. It could be any one of our team, our collaborative team, saying, "Hey, are you sure that's possible? Are you sure that's possible? Are you sure that it's going to work budget wise, legal wise, engineering wise?" And I think this is a very healthy process to make sure that we're not getting ourselves into um, a one-way design street that we're committing to without knowing if it's possible and plausible. So I feel that we're in a good place for now until the next questioning is going to come up.
Until the next dragon shows up.
Until the next dragon spreads their wings. Yes.
Is etched.
So I'm curious. Besides the landfill challenge that you just described, is there another thing that you're worried about? Maybe even something that you haven't mentioned to us yet? Like if you just check in with yourself now, is there something that's coming up that you're concerned about?
I mean, always when we are not working off of a known budget, and the budget is created per project and not the project created per the budget, there's always a question mark there. Again, it comes back to the same assumption that we're creating enough value that has enough market to make this whole thing happen. But there is always a chance that we're pushing a design agenda that is going to eventually not be workable. The business plan is going to eventually come up with a certain costs to make that thing happen. And in the other spreadsheet, in the other tab, there is going to be potential income from selling best case scenario, worst case scenario, selling value. And if the worst case scenario selling value is going to be um, lower than the cost of it, then it's a no go, right? The minimum cost needs to at least break even. The worst case scenario. That fear, I mean, it's partially our responsibility as designers to make sure that it makes sense financially, and that there is a good chance of this project being not good chance. We need to make sure that this project is financially successful, because if it's not plausible from a financial standpoint, I said it before and I'll say it again, then we're wasting our time here.
So how might we deal with this in a better way? Like, how do you create a budget now, so early in the project? How has it worked in other instances? Like, is there any kind of specific pragmatic advice that you want to give us? Is there a specific request?
First, I'll say it's not my specialty. Like business plans and budgeting a project like that, there are people who specialize on that, and it's definitely not our specialty. From what I've seen from other projects, some projects have a set budget from the get-go. They know, okay, we're going to do a $5 million investment project. And then it informs the architects and the engineers what is the framework, what they're aiming for. We need to create a project that its max cost is $5 million all in all. So framing that and setting a budget to it, even if it's fictional, is a strong tool for us to know which sea are we swimming in, what are the parameters and the criteria that we're working within. So if you tell me, listen, Itai, this is a $10 million project, I would address the design process differently than if you say, hey, it's a $20 million project. So for me, it's a little challenging. I'm allowing myself to dream big because for now there is no budget framework, and I am aware and accept that a lot of these magic and beauty, and as always, which is normal in any design process, is going to be lost in the way due to budget. So I always try to dream the biggest and the most beautiful, and to create the most beautiful world our heart knows possible, like the title of the book, knowing that there are going to be, there are going to be sacrifices that need to happen, and that's fine. And if we don't dream big and hope for the best, and design the most beautiful thing that we can create, then after cuts and compromises, we're going to end up with something extremely mediocre, and we don't want that. So we need to dream really big and really extraordinary. So even after the cuts and the compromises, it's still going to be amazing.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we can have a side discussion on budgets some more, and we can try to inform the process. But I must say, I do like the idea that you're just dreaming big, and we can roll things back later. I think that's a good way to design a product. Also, in the world of software, we try to iterate quickly and build minimal viable product and gradually build a product, but it's always better when you have a kind of a bigger vision that you're holding, and from that you're then slicing the smaller steps you're going to take. So yeah, I like that.
Also, there's another thing that I heard many years ago, talked by Jaime Lerner. He's a legendary mayor that transformed Curitiba in Brazil from a failing city into a prospering one. And one thing that he said that really echoes in my mind still is that if you know what needs to be done, then budget is not a big limiting factor. It's the creativity. The lower the budget it is, the more you have to increase the volume on the creativity on how to reach these solutions. And he's actually promoting using less money to create better solutions. So if we dream big and we know what is correct, what needs to be done, and then through the budget, you're saying, okay, we need to reduce this budget item. Maybe we can still find a way to make it happen with less budget, just by being more creative. So exactly. I think it's important. Yes.
Okay, so maybe you describe the model and like what we're seeing, and refer to the field that we talked about, and then we can talk about
ridges.
And the two ridges.
Yeah,
and then we can talk about the different challenges or ideas that we had. Itai, can you share please your screen, and let's see the 3D model of the project?
Sure. Okay.
So what are we seeing here?
So here we see the two ridge lines where we have these buildings, 2- and 3-story buildings on both ridges, and here below we have the valley with the terraces built in. I can throw a cut through here, section 1, and then we can see the terraces here. So we see the terrace surface, not necessarily how far they go. Here, what we do see is the contour line at the bottom of the valley. So we can see that the contour. Wait a second, change it. The contour drops pretty steep in the beginning, and then it becomes milder. Yeah, levels out. It's not level, but it's not as steep. So we have a pretty constant depth of fill material, and we want to create these terraces because they allow us for all these beautiful development inside of them. So let's not just hide the base them. All right, so now I erase the slice tool, and we can look at all this topography. So you can see that it's pretty steep on the outer banks of this developed area, but we can see that on the ridgeline and in within, we're creating these quite level or moderately terracing down terrain. And that allows us to create all this development inside in a very compact area. And it allows us to keep all this area, not just around here, but the farm is much larger, in reforestation, conservation, food forests for humans and for wildlife. I like to have it with this view and notice that we already have shading. So the software here allows me to play with the shading. So I can see it's already geolocated in the exact location where it is. So I can slide, see my slider here?
Yes, yes.
I can change the hour of the day and I can
Excellent.
change the dates. So for example, we can look how the shading is going to look like at 9:16 a.m. in January or in June.
This is super cool.
Maybe take us to
Or
sunset time.
in October. Yeah, we can see
Let's do
sunset time.
sunset time. And maybe just a quick tour of the project with the time we have left. Just like
Yes, for sure.
walk us through, driving up to the behind the spa, maybe parking, walking in through the portal, Sunset Plaza, and
Here,
etc.
this is Sunset Plaza at sunset. See long shadows.
But let's start from the beginning. I agree with Alad. Like a real like tour from the entrance, or like from next to the gym.
Okay, so here we are at eye level, standing in the middle of the roundabout. So we have this boulevard of trees leading to the portal to the old city. And if I look in this direction, these are potential apartment buildings overflow if we need more square meters for the financial model, but I am quite certain that we're not going to need them. I think we have enough square meters in the downtown area. And this is the gym under the Guanacaste. This Guanacaste is gorgeous and we're going to conserve it. And the gym is built just off the side, so respecting the space needed for the tree. There's another Guanacaste down there in the valley, so I staged it, and another Guanacaste on that side. This is, we're looking through parking area that is not staged yet, into the spa and the yoga deck on the second story. So below is a spa, the second story is yoga deck. It's looking into this pristine valley over there. I'm looking back towards the portal. So I'm going to walk. This is on the left here, on the right side here, there is a drop-off pickup bay for cars. You can see the one lane road going down and the one lane road coming up on the other side. And now I'm just going to move forward, approaching the portal. So when I approach the portal, this is the view that I'm getting. Potentially, this is the bell that sounds when the tide is in its optimum state for surfing, and maybe there is also a tide clock on top of it. And then if I look through here, I can see the ocean at the distance and some fountain or water element. And then we are here at the plaza. To our left, we have a reception office that is the concierge for the residents and store owners, maybe a souvenir store. Definitely a place where first aid kit and defibrillator and such reside. Then we have a bathroom unit here. There is a second story that is an apartment. Here we have a convenience store at the first story here and two apartments above that. Over there at the far end, there is a gelato and cafe with the parcel tables to sit around and enjoy the view and the food. There is a food truck here. And then if we approach the arcades, we can see this is a restaurant, a two-story restaurant. And past that, there is a co-working space with an apartment above. We can approach here the arcades and look down at the city below. So on the first terrace, we can see that there is a stage. Back. So we can see the amphitheater. The green area here is the amphitheater. There is a fire pit. There is a stage area and then there is the pool. The stage is just marked in the pavement. There's no different height, just one surface. But the thought here is it's multifunctional. So there could be a band or a theater group coming and giving a concert or a show, and people can sit on the terraces of the amphitheater. But at other times, there could be also around the fire pit a smaller group of people that are just having fun around the fire. Or every once in a while, there could be fire and a drum circle at full moon, like African drumming. So people can be sitting on the terraces and the fire in the center, and people dancing on the dance floor that is the stage. And at other times, the flat area of the fire pit can become a DJ booth, and it's facing the pool. And then people can be dancing on the dance floor and have a pool party kind of vibe that engages this whole area. So it works in both directions. Then around the pool, we have these lounge spaces that has changing rooms and bathrooms, and one of them probably going to have a bar with some snacks like a nice ceviche or something with a cocktail, and sunbathing seats and so on. And the pool is an infinity pool that kind of like overflow cascades into the next terrace. On the sides here, we have some businesses on the ground level and apartments on the second story. This white block here is a hotel that has a sunset bar on the top floor. So it's a boutique, like an eight-room boutique hotel. All along the edges here, we have more buildings with a retail on the bottom floor and a housing on the second and third floor. Here, this terrace is the park. So on one side, we have the Jamboree, kind of like large indoor playground. Elad, do you want to tell us more what you envision inside there?
I mean, it's meant to solve the problem of what do you do with you have young kids and it's super hot outside or rainy outside, and you want them to have fun, you want to do something, you want to get out of the house, or you're a tourist and you're visiting, and the kids are kind of climbing the walls and want to do something else other than be in your Airbnb. And so it would be a space with soft surfaces and a ball pit and slides and fun activities for wooden toys, activities for kids to have fun.
Okay. And then a daycare, potentially in the second floor. Maybe also, this is very large space, so potentially also a room for the teenagers where they can hang out, kind of like a salon for the teenagers where they can bring their computers and do video games together or play ping pong or pool. On the other side here, we have a library cafe. So this is going to be like a day restaurant where you can order fine coffee and something to eat and borrow a book or purchase a book. And there are going to be both more social spaces where you can sit with your friends and more private spaces where you can just focus on work or on a book and be by yourself. And then when we go down here, this is a more high density area that we're still not totally sold on the layout, but it has a main plaza with a water element. We have these small cute streets that are going to have little retail places on each one of these little plazas. So maybe another tiny little specialty cafe, a flower store, a hairdresser. So we're bringing more activity and life to these little plazas. This one here is the communal house that opens up into the plaza here. And here I can envision also some small retail shop, maybe a flower shop or something like that. And then these are residential spaces, residential homes. Some of them on the edges are 2 stories. In the middle, they're 1 story. So we keep the view to the ocean open for the upper terraces. And then below here, we have parking space. So this is under roof parking. And this is ample parking space on this terrace. So it allows residents of these houses to park their car under the roof and short proximity to their houses. And then the bottom terrace is a back of house terrace with a parking bay for loading and unloading. This is where you would find the garbage recycling separation place, and machine room for a backup generator if need be, or batteries for solar system, inverters, pumps for water features. All this fun goes down there. Potentially also a little workshop for maintenance, like if a repair needs to, a repair person needs to, repair a chair or a parasol. They have a place where they have some tools and space where they can cut and fit things together. And then from here on, the road extends further down here, but this is not drawn yet, but extends down here, down the hill to this area where we're going to have the workers' village. So we can talk also about that decision if you want.
Yeah, I think this is a great overview. And what's coming up for me is we probably need to do a series of these and talk in chunks about the project. And perhaps next time we can zoom into specific areas and talk about the pattern that we had with kind of parking and bathroom and accessibility solutions with ramps and how we're dealing with the slope. We can talk about the worker village and the different positions and discuss that. We could talk about the community hall and kind of the reason for its existence or not. And another thing I really wanted to do is actually try to do a tour with you where we walk more at eyesight level if possible, like walk through the terraces, give people the feel of how we created this arcade loop where if we could simulate rain in the software or even in our minds and see how we're protected from it, or kind of put middle of the day sun on top of us and see how we're getting shade there. So more UX nuance maybe in the next session. This is really great, Itai. Thank you so much for this. This is fantastic. I'm getting excited seeing this model come to life. I'm pretty sure that people who are curious about the project will really appreciate seeing this and will be hungry for more. So I think this is fantastic. And thank you.
Awesome. My pleasure.
Until next time. Bye-bye.